He was saying to me after we had chatted, wow, it's so good. Now we finally have an edgy Asian guy. Where, I thought if I wasn't Asian, he would have just said, wow, we have an edgy guy.
That problem of like, you're taking every person of an East Asian background and saying, you guys are all the same.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. In each race, there's different personalities, there's different archetypes. Diversity and representation in films is a very big topic right now. There's a lot of different people on different sides of it. There's a lot of people who don't like it, people who are confused by it, and a lot of people who think it's just woke stuff.
Yeah, that word particularly, woke, it started off as something, and even the whole diversity within the film industry, and gradually it's just split into so many different meanings and what it means to be a diverse actor, or what does a project mean when it needs diversity. I think representation is a better term.
Yeah, I think so.
And especially what we do, I think when we talk about like having diversity and representation, it still means like the best person for the job should get the role, instead of just, I think, what the studios are doing now, which is just ticking boxes just because they need a certain person. But are you even the best person for the job?
And as you were saying in the previous episode, we as actors didn't get into it to represent ourselves on screen. Like, I know that's something we hear a lot now from ethnic Australian actors and worldwide. You say, why are you in this industry? And pretty much a large majority of them now say, I want to be the person on screen that I didn't get to see growing up.
Yeah, but but would you watch yourself on screen? Do you it's like, I feel like people say that, but it's just a tick off a box, because are you the best person to represent?
Yeah, because it feels like it's not even about the craft anymore of acting. Like, when I was a kid, I wanted to, we wanted to be actors because we saw these cool characters and like these interesting stories and personalities. And we never looked at the race of the actor playing it. We just connected. And that's what we fell in love with, the craft of acting. And because of all this debate and stuff, it's almost like if you're an ethnic actor in the West, that has to be your goal. You have to, obviously we have to, represent people. But that's not our goal, you know what I mean? That's not like our main.
I think one way to see it is that you should be the best version of yourself, and that itself represents your race. And it's in a way that it's like, if you become a good role model, if you become a great actor, if you have a hard work ethic and people can inspire to be you, it's like that itself is great, because anyone from any race can be like, I want to be like Marshall, or I want to be like Sangeetha, because they're a very good standard to uphold. So anyone from any race.
A good role model, definitely. And because just as we were kids, like, it doesn't matter what race you are, you can be a good person, you can be a good role model. And I don't really like how it's become this thing of like this, like, it's actually become a lot more segregated in the industry, because now it's like, we want to tell East Asian stories. We want to tell, South Asian stories. But in a way, this is kind of dividing us, I think.
It's dividing us in the sense that now you have projects that is just one race, and it's just for one race of people. And I think as actors, it also backfires on us, because now whenever, I get casting calls, or someone like an ethnic person of a very specific ethnicity, it's only those casting calls that they get. So you can only audition for Asian things.
Yeah.
And I think that's not why most of us came into this industry. We don't want to just be seen as the Asian actor or the black actor or the Middle Eastern actor. We want more opportunities than just to be part of these projects.
And it's so much about like who's written the role as well, because like I've said before, like the first agent meeting that I had, I went there thinking like I'd won an award in my college. I'd gotten top marks. All the teachers had vouched for me. I went into that agency meeting thinking, I've worked so hard. I've got all this talent. Yay, I'm going to be signed. And then the Australian agent says, we just want you in case an Indian role pops up, and then we can just send you out. And then it was so much confusion because I was like, first of all, what's an Indian role? Second of all, is that all I'm worth?
Yeah.
And third of all, the Indian role is an absolute stereotype.
I had a very similar experience for when I first signed up to an agency. So this is after I left and I was looking for agents. And I remember I went to one and they looked at all the things that I've done and the lady said, wow, you just missed out because we were looking for extras for Hacksaw Ridge. So we were looking for Japanese extras for it. And then I didn't eventually go with that agent, but I did get my first agent. But when I did that, I remember I went into the office and he was saying to me after we had chatted, wow, it's so good. Now we finally have an edgy Asian guy. Where, I thought if I wasn't Asian, he would have just said, wow, we have an edgy guy. And that itself told me that, okay, this is what he's going to try to put me up against or put me in terms of stereotyping.
I think that's the distinction that people don't quite understand unless you are in this boat. Because we've met so many actors who are of Caucasian backgrounds and they don't quite understand it when we say, oh, they're sending us out for Asian roles, because in their head they're like, well, but you are Asian, so of course you'll be submitted for Asian roles. But I think what they're not understanding is when they are submitted for a role, they're never going to see a casting that says, looking for white actors. First of all, they'd be like, what? What the hell? What is a white actor? And imagine if every time it was the same written thing, every time you saw looking for white actors, it said, bogan, ignorant, a bit racist. Imagine every time you get submitted, that's what you get. That's what it feels like. And like, I know we're living in Australia, but Australia is such a multicultural country. And basically, we're still not completely seeing that reflected on our screens.
No, Australia, it always feels like it's kind of 10 years back from like the rest of the Western world. From the UK and the US. When I look at the media here, the films and the shows, like I think it is getting a bit better, but it's like for me and just being like East Asian Australian, I am yet to see a leading role unless it's like, it's something so stereotypical, like it's an all East Asian cast, then you'll see it. But if it's a cast where it's like all different types of ethnicities, very rarely, or if ever, you will see the lead be an East Asian male. And I think it kind of reflects on our society that maybe they don't see people like me as leaders. And I think that's an issue because, starting Noah and a lot of the projects that we do, like you and I, we are the leaders.
Yeah. And I think it's that problem of like, you're taking every person of an East Asian background and saying, you guys are all the same. But that's not the case. Just like every race on the planet, in each race, there's different personalities, there's different archetypes. I'm very different to another mixed Indian Australian girl, I'm sure. You're very different to other East Asian actors. And that's part of the problem. And it's something that's sadly still happening today. Like we still see stories from our friends who are actors. You even had a stereotyped audition just the other week. So I feel like this whole diversity thing coming out is actually backtrailing us. Because when we think about what we want as diverse performers, first of all, why are we even calling ourselves diverse performers? If you look at like Fast and Furious, I think that's a really great example. Because there's so many different races in that film, but it's never pointed out. It's not like, oh, and also Han, he's not a stereotype.
Yeah.
You know, he's just this character, they're just that character, and they just get to be. Because again, we're all human. We all have different personalities, and we should really be treated as such.
Yeah. And I think going back to the whole woke agenda thing, and I think because this whole movement has happened, it's kind of made us seen in a very unfavorable light, because it's like people not understanding that that's not what we want, but it's kind of like maybe that's what they've pushed. You know, like the people who don't represent us have pushed that.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of backfired on us, because now everyone's like, oh, you guys are woke because you gotta do this, you gotta do that. And I think especially with Noah, it's always like, that's not what it represents at all. Noah, it represents an equal opportunity for anyone. Like, it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, you just have to be the best of the best for the project.
Actor.
Yes, the best actor, the best anything, and show that, prove to yourself and to us that, you know, you have what it takes to take on this part.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the industry, it needs a lot more of.
That's what we want.
Who cares what background this person is? Like, you can still definitely write roles for culture and stuff.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be that's all it is.
Yeah.
It should be the opposite way around, where if you say, for example, you're casting an accountant, why does it matter what race this accountant is? You know, just cast the best actor for the part.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that's where Australia has its issue, where maybe it feels like it still needs to keep this image of Australia to the world, where Australians need to be a certain criteria. But especially like growing up here in Sydney, look what Australia is. It's diverse. Like most people I know are not just one race.
Even when I moved to Sydney, even the white looking people here were not just Australian. They were Italian or Greek or this or that or Arab, like, and and that too, like, Australia's been a multicultural country for actually a very long time. And, you know, my mother grew up in Alice Springs, and that was also a very diverse place, she was telling me. You know, that's back in like the 70s.
It's the issue where I think the 90% of our media towards the international markets, like, it's better now, but like especially in the 90s, 2000s, 90% of that represented 10% of us. And I think that's the issue.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that it's like a bit upsetting to me is just looking at all the films that come out every year, and like it's always a very similar narrative that they like to put out. And it's, again, it's not even representing modern Australia. It's the outback, or if it's Australia, it's got to be something to do with surfing or something. And I always think about that, because I'm like, there are so many better stories that you could have told, but because there's a certain amount of gatekeeping in it, then a lot of these stories, you know, they don't get told.
I think one thing with how it's the woke thing has kind of backfired now is that we're no longer looking at who is qualified for a part and just about whether they're representing a community. And we see that not just in our industry, but in other industries now, particularly in political spheres. It's like, oh, we should vote for this person because they're ethnic and they're a woman and they're a part of this community. But it's like, are they the most qualified for the role though? And even in our industry, I begin to see it that they want an ethnic person, so they just pick an influencer who's ethnic. And they're actually not the best actor for the part.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, acting, like I said in the previous video, is still a craft that you need to take seriously. Like, some of these people that are chosen, I don't think they take it very seriously. It's a bit of fun and games,
or it is wanting to just tick off a goal that I represented this.
I represent this, but also it's just like, I just want to be on TV or in a film or whatever it may be. But it's at the same time, like, it wasn't like this back in the day. Like, you needed to,
had to be good.
you had to be good, or you had to really care about it, or have some sort of charisma.
And I'd think like as, again, like ethnic background actors, we're not looking for a handout.
No.
We want the equal opportunity to audition, but we're not looking for a handout because we still want to earn it.
Yeah.
But we need the opportunity in order to even be seen in the first place. I think the opportunity is the main thing.
Yeah, there was something recently where it was one of those things that it was showcasing all the winners of a certain competition, and it was just mostly Caucasian, you know, people who got it. And I remember there was one comment, and it was just saying that, oh, like, where's the diversity? And someone replied that maybe they just weren't good enough.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you think only one certain race of people are good actors? Like, you think there's no good actors in the other races? Like, I think going back to what you were saying, it is the opportunity that these people haven't been given to showcase their talents.
Because no opportunity means you're not going to be nominated for those award shows because you never even got the chance to audition. And then the public are only seeing the nominees and they're going, oh, well, there must have been no one talented who was ethnic because they're not in here.
Yeah. And it's really about who gets chosen because, you know, I've seen projects where most of the cast has been, you know, Caucasian, and I'm just wondering, where were the ethnic people auditioning for this? And it's kind of like you realize that, you know, maybe there were people who auditioned for it, but they just never got chosen because there's a certain agenda or a certain thing that they just want to keep.
And of course, I've seen multiple auditions for things and they list that they want a Caucasian person. It's like you're reading through the brief and you're like, that's something I could do, that's got my skills, looking for just this race. And that's the same on the opposite scale, looking for specifically this ethnic race, which is also part of the problem, which we're not trying to do at NOAA. And I think being mixed race, I really see it because I'm half white, half Indian, but I will never get the fully white roles. And even I will not be considered for the fully Indian roles.
Yeah.
And it's just seeing that through the industry makes me realize how ridiculous and bad it is. And yeah, that's something that we don't want to be doing.
Having said all this, like, I'm just so grateful and so glad that we have NOAA. And it's just like, you know, like being on certain sets and just reading certain scripts like that they want to put me forward to. I'm just like, man, there'll never be anything as great as NOAA that I can write myself or I can be my own voice. And yeah, I think it is important, not just for us, but, you know, just giving other people opportunities. And I always like it when I can see a potential in someone and we get them for a project. And it's like, and it's just magic. Like, that's one of the best feelings, is giving someone that opportunity because they are the best, or they just have something in them that is so great.
Yeah. And I think what I love to see as well is because we're just getting people of any race, and it's important that they're the right actor for the role instead. Seeing these people of different races work together on set is something I really love because it just further emphasizes that we're all human beings and we all like the same TV shows and this and that, and it doesn't matter what race we are. And I think that unity is like what we need to be spreading, really.
Yeah, the industry, they should take notes.
From NOAA.
Yeah, from NOAA. Well, hopefully, if, you know, when we do succeed, we will be the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the goal. If, like, I'm not trying to sound arrogant or anything, but I think that's always been the goal of NOAA, is to build it up to such a point where we can be the forefront of making these decisions and we can change the industry in a way that people can start believing in it again. Because I think the way it's going, it's just going the opposite way. Things are getting worse with all these new things happening, and I think that's Noah has to represent something
Yeah.
that is good and something that's better for the future.